Hi, it's the time that we cover another set of interesting Windows games from 2002, so if you're ready for an explosive mixture of fun, grab a drink, snack and let's jump straight in. The world drowns in a bottomless sea of chaos. The monsters run rampart, the evil spreads and people are afraid to leave their houses. And it all started years back, when a black rift appeared seemingly out of nowhere, tore the sky in half and vomited out millions of monsters that quickly overran the world, effectively reversing our progress, leaving us in what feels like near medieval times of technology. The rift was named the Black Abyss, and within days, all of the world's armies were either disbanded or destroyed, and the population was largely decimated. As the dust settled and the monsters spread more and more, appearing less concentrated and more spread apart, the survivors huddled together, founding small towns and settlements. And because the technological advancements failed to save us, we've once again turned to mystical, and the newfound magic emerged, serving as the literal and proverbial beacon of light in these dark times. The game starts with you playing as a mercenary for hire and arriving in a small town that's long lost any hope. Shadowflare Episode 1 is the first out of 4 episodes of a shareware action RPG, not unlike and more popular Diablo and Diablo 2. In fact, it's more than obvious that it was the Diablos that were the inspirations for Shadowflare. But as an alternative, or a new title for those who completed both Diablos previously, it actually works quite fine. While it follows the typical for the genre gameplay formula of defeating increasingly larger in numbers and strength group of monsters to help the settlement you found yourself in, it does few things differently than the progenitor of the genre. So as you start the game you're a mercenary and you don't start by picking another class, and instead do it after a little while of playing. 5 or 6 levels to be precise, and it kinda feels like a natural progression of how you've been playing all along, rather than a choice. It can be a warrior, wizard/witch, and a hunter. You also don't begin your adventure alone, but with an animal companion that is actually really useful. It can collect items from your fallen enemies, it can activate switches to open doors, and it can even help you in combat. It has 2 states between which you can toggle, active and inactive. In first, it will do everything I just told you about, and it's one that you lose most of the time. When it's inactive though, it's in its emotional support mode, in which all that it does is look hella cute, following you around entirely immune to any damage, healing itself over time, and being there just so that you would not feel alone. The animal naturally gains levels, same as you do, but at a slower pace, and with time acquires stronger attacks too. Oh, and if you're a heartless monster, someone who would abandon their pet in the middle of the woods somewhere, then yeah, for 1, F you, and for 2, you can get a completely different one in each town. The entire gameplay is quest-based, meaning that same as in Diablo, you receive a quest, follow through by either defeating a particular group of monsters, or going somewhere and clearing it of monsters, or hunting a particular monster, or I think you get the gist of it. There's a lot of monsters everywhere, and you have to remove them from this plane of existence. While Shadowflare takes place in the post-apocalyptic future, there are no gunpowder weapons or grenades, despite there being laser turrets in the game and even teleportation. It's an odd choice and takes you a bit out of experience, but it's not big enough of an issue to detract you from playing. What can though, is the fact that the faster you click the mouse, the faster your character attacks. And while you may think that it's obvious, because how else would that work, I disagree. I feel that the mouse holding should already offer you the fastest possible attack, and your focus should be on correct rotation of skills and spells rather than on the mashing. That's me though, and you may not share the sentiment. All in all, Shadowflare, while not being the same quality level as Diablo, is still rather fun and definitely worth a playthrough if you're a fan of the genre. No One Lives Forever 2, A Spy in Harm's Way, which I will abbreviate as NOLF2 or MILF2, I haven't made my mind yet, is a first-person 1960s spy-themed shooter and a follow-up to the first game. It takes place exactly a year after the events of the first title, and once again follows Kate Archer during the time when tensions between United States and Soviet Union over a small but strategically important island of chaos are heating up. Kate is still working for the Unity, an organization whose goal is to prevent international conflicts, and especially those that could result in a global war. So, Unity sends her to Japan to attend, and I shit you not here, International Crime Convention to learn more about what's happening. There, she meets another Unity agent who gives her her first assignment, which will begin a snowball of missions that will take Kate all around the world and allow her to solve this rather difficult political situation. Sometimes quietly, sometimes not so much, but usually leaving a trail of warm bodies behind. She will visit Siberia, Ohio, Antarctica and India among others, and each of the missions she'll partake in will have their own unique and fun to complete objectives. Most of them can be fulfilled in either stealth or by guns blazing approach, or if you're feeling adventurous, or are like me and can't decide on one, a mixture of both. Either way, all the missions are rather open-ended, allow for taking them on in numerous different ways, and not all objectives needs to be completed for the plot to carry on. which is a rather fresh and more realistic approach cause you can't be expecting that all your spy missions will always be successes. That sounds really weird when talking about Nolf 2, because if you remember the first game, you probably also do that it was rather humorous, full of jokes and often funny situations title, despite the theoretically serious plot. And the second one is no different. Still, if you love the original, you'll love this one too, as it's as good, if not better. Now, when talking about a spy game, one can't just ignore all the tools of the trade. So blowtorches disguised as hairspray, bombs hidden in robotic cuts, or lipstick mini-explosives among others. Fun stuff, and it's equally as fun to use, and if you decide to give Nolf 2 a chance, you'll have a blast. Emergency 2, The Ultimate Fight for Life, is an isometric top-down strategy in which you're controlling cities' emergency units in response to many different life-threatening emergencies. You are given a full access to fire, rescue and police vehicles, and also a tow truck too. So every 4-year-old boy's dream scenario, short of those terrible emergencies naturally. Each mission starts with an overview of the situation, highlighting what and where happened, and then you evaluate what you know and start dealing with the situation from the control room. And since there are literally dozens of different scenarios to deal with, from a person trapped in a car on the train tracks, through a traffic accident, sinking old tanker, or even a volcanic eruption, you'll need to familiarize yourself with how each of the units work, and what you can and cannot do with them, and best strategies to approach each and every situation. Especially that while you're sending different units to the emergency site, when they get there, you'll need to coordinate and lead all of them individually, making sure that they're performing as best as is possible. And it's actually very crucial, as not only each of the missions has a budget which you cannot exceed, but they're also very often timed, and what's more, many of the actions that you can take require a quick response, like sending police to secure a crash site and redirect traffic to prevent future accidents, or having the helicopter pick up accident victims to the hospital ASAP before they kick the bucket. It's a game that teaches you how to optimize, balance things, and act quick and smart. It's obviously clear that Emergency 2 is not a game for everyone. It definitely isn't, but if anything I just said sounds even remotely interesting to you, then I would most definitely recommend you check it out, as it's a very well thought out and fun playing title. Serious Sam the second encounter is, well, second game in the long-running series of crazy over-the-top first-person shooters, and equally as mad of a game as the one before. Given that it's a follow-up to the original, a lot of things have been improved and expanded upon, short of maybe gameplay formula, which remained action-packed romp in which you fight off hundreds if not thousands of enemies coming at you from all directions at all times. Second encounter adds 7 new types of enemies and 3 new weapons of chainsaw, flamethrower and a scoped rifle. There are also some dynamic environments in the game, which add a lot of variety and make all the running and gunning all the more fun. Who wouldn't want to fight countless monstrosities in a room in which the gravity is multi-directional or on a nice covered floor? It's pretty cool, I tell you. The second encounter starts directly after the first game, with Sam's ship going off for the Cyrus, or well, attempting to do so. But when it collides with a civilian ship soon after liftoff, start, launch, or however else you'd call it for a spaceship, it falls back to Earth, crash landing in the Sierra Madre de Chiapas near the Mayan city of Palenque. To be able to escape once again unfriendly to him territory, Sam must now find and recover a backup Syrian ship, which is apparently hidden somewhere on Earth. Well, somewhere and sometime, as it's definitely not in the same time period. Where and where then? Who knows? Well, whomever played the game does, but all I'll tell you here is that there are 3 unique time periods and locations you'll be playing at, and one of them is a medieval town in Poland, which to me at least, is kinda fun. So if you don't care about any death in your games, and are just looking for a fast and explosive shooter, preferably one to use to let some steam off after a hard day's work, then there was hardly anything better in 2002. In Darkfall the Journal you play as Mr. Crowhurst. Yup, no first name. Why? I don't know, but you're probably some kind of a cold child, raised in a locked community and called something odd, like a screwdriver, doormat, or maybe a summer breeze or something. In the worst case, it may even be something offensive, like a wet fart or stinky. The point is, you have no name, and we just gotta roll with it and not let my imagination wander. The game starts with your brother calling you out of the blue and urging you to meet him in the town of Dorset in a hotel Dowerton, as while he was working there with 2 ghost hunters, something odd had happened, and now the hunters have seemingly become the huntees, and he feels that he may be the one too. And while it's a tad weird phone call to receive out of the blue, the voice on the other end seems seriously disturbed and troubled, so you decide to meet with your brother. Upon arrival, it appears that not only the hotel's really been haunted by the spirits of people who vanished in it in 1947, but that your brother is also gone. And this is where the game truly begins, with a disappearance, mystery and a whole lot of walking and clicking. Darkfall is the first-person point-and-click horror/psychological adventure in which you have to solve the mystery of disappearances of your brother and numerous other people who just poofed out of existence, leaving no obvious reason where to and why. Like that sting on the metro train that attacks your nostrils aggressively and unexpectedly, just to go away a second later as if nothing was ever there. The gameplay comprises of exploration of many pre-rendered locations, finding notes, diaries and clues left behind by those who are gone, and a lot of puzzle solving. And these come as riddles, encrypted messages and mechanisms you'll have to figure out. It's worth pointing out that all the notes, journals or whatever else that you'll find are not recorded anywhere, and you either have to remember all the details or make actual real-life notes that will help you solve this unnatural case. Darkfall may not be the best mystery adventure game out there, especially that it uses pre-rendered graphics, and I'm mentally allergic to those, as in I get brushes on my brain when I see them, and they really itch. But it's a well put together title with an interesting plot that most fans of the genre would no doubt enjoy. I am of the firm belief that among many RPG developers on the PC market, Obsidian Entertainment is the best. I mean, there are few great, some good, and few decent devs out there, but there's only one best. And it's them. I mean, Knights of the Old Republic 2, both Neverwinter Nights games in varying degrees, also Fallout New Vegas, that's more than obvious, both Pillars of Eternity titles, The Outer Worlds and countless other classics when they were still within Black Isle Studios. No one can craft as engaging narrative, as deep and meaningful choices, and as freedom-oriented game as they can. And while they work with BioWare on Neverwinter Nights, arguably another excellent at the time developer, their influence and touch is clearly visible in that title too. But let's not talk about milking the cow and just grab the bucket and get to work. Neverwinter Nights is a real-time role-playing based on the 3rd edition of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons rule set and using a full 3D top-down engine with rotation. Perhaps it's nothing special today, but back then it was really immersive. And especially that same as Baldur's Gate, the action could be paused at any time to issue orders, to examine the situation and to zoom in for some of those sweet combat close-ups. You know, with Goblin's head flying off his neck or a sword cutting a troll in half. Or well, for any number of other reasons. Unlike Baldur's Gate though, in Neverwinter Nights, while you may have other characters join your party, you only ever really control your main one, and it's the one that you can issue orders to that has his own inventory and levels up. Others just follow yours, smell nice and do whatever the hell they please. Well, truth be told, sometimes they don't smell that great. Anyway, the story of the main campaign of Neverwinter focuses on deadly plague known as the Wailing Death, that is decimating the population of the city. While the disease is terrible and dangerous, there is a cure. Or, well, there can be a cure if all the ingredients for it are collected and delivered in a timely manner. And since they come from 4 different monsters, you have to team up with Fentic Moss and his friend Dester to capture them. The monsters, not the 2 dudes. As our 3 heroes go about that, risking their lives, limbs, dinner and whatnot, they are attacked by mysterious assassins hired by an evil cult that's responsible for the poisonous illness. And that's, my dear viewers, how this larger-than-life campaign sets off. It's a decent story, and one worth completing, but it's not what made Neverwinter Nights such an amazing, beloved and timeless title. Not even close. It was actually incredible multiplayer mode in which each of the gamers plays as just one character, and one of them takes the role of a dungeon master, controlling the adventure, monsters, traps and the rules governing it all too. Virtually making Neverwinter Nights the closest equivalent to a real tabletop RPG that there ever was. And no, I'm not exaggerating, it was that good. Also, the addition of a map, scripted events, cutscenes, conversations and adventures editor made Neverwinter Nights basically infinitely replayable title. Arx Fatalis is what happens when you eat something that's not good anymore and then have to spend the rest of the day on the throne, begging the death to take you as you just can't stand the pain and suffering anymore. I think. Because the one that we're going to talk about today is actually a first-person perspective role-playing set near entirely in a vast and mysterious underground world. The subsurface kingdom is built out of 8 huge levels that comprise of populated settlements with shops and the likes, and tons upon tons of more or less dangerous areas where you'll be fighting for your own life. While unlocking of new areas in Arx Fatalis may require completion of certain quests in particular order, when you do have them available, you can pretty much explore them in any direction and order you'd like, making the game a rather open-world fare. Well, at least as much as it can be open, dozens of meters/feet under the surface. There are many different builds, focusing on melee, ranged, magic or stealth available, and most if not all non-story combat encounters can actually be avoided if you really put your mind to it. Both magic and melee combat are very strategic, with first being based off runes, which you need to draw with a mouse to cast them, and second offering different directional types of attacks. It's a fun, even if a bit clunky solution for both, but also something hardly any other games did. Arx Fatalis is one of the very few games to this day that allow for complete and unhindered killing of all the characters that you meet in it. Good or bad, NPC or not, if they're there and you really want to, and are good enough to do it, you can actually off them all. The story is something about Arx Fatalis once being an underground town built by all kinds of creatures, be it humans, dwarves, trolls, goblins, you name it, and populated by them living together in peace. Well, for a while at least, as resource scarcity, lack of access to stuff like sunlight and poor ventilation around public toilets eventually proved too much for them all to handle, and the unrest and conflicts ensued, turning sparks of animosity into a full-on raging fire of hate. You start the game by waking up in a cell with a bump on your head and no recollection of who, where and why you are, and an entire adventure ahead of you. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Arx Fatalis. I wonder if you'd be cool with me saying that Disciples to Dark Prophecy is just a follow-up to the first game and a shameless Heroes of Might and Magic clone. I wonder, but I won't ask, and also one of these sentences is incorrect. Because while it's clear what the series are based on, they do their own thing too, making this entire affair feel fresh and fun, and not like a burger that's been microwave reheated for the 7th time 3rd day in a row. The general gameplay idea is very similar, nay, near identical really, so you have the heroes, the armies and towns, and you explore the overworld map, all the while taking all the combat encounters on separate strategic screens. Bada beep bada boom, that's Heroes folks, and that's Disciples too. The way the cities and capital expansion works is quite different though, with the first only being upgraded in level and offering you various different bonuses, while the other being comprised of numerous important buildings and creature dwellings. Each of the types of heroes that you can lead also have different influence on the capital and your gameplay, and while all of these are perhaps not revolutions but more like evolutions, they're definitely worth a try. Interestingly enough, Disciples 2's storyline is told through campaign of all 4 available races of humans, mountain clans, Legion of the Damned and the Undead Hordes. And only after completing all 4 of these, you'll know what, why and how really happened, and will have a full grasp on an overarching plot. It's perhaps not a new concept being previously used in Blizzard's StarCraft, but it's a fun approach to storytelling, and one that sort of makes you go through all the content that the game has to offer to understand why its world is the way that it is. Mutant Storm is like Robotron, Asteroids and Geometry Wars all rolled into one and served over a spread of tiny, super fast 89 levels of pure arcade fun. And yes, there's really that many of them, and yes again, they are really that much fun, if you like those classic experiences that is. The idea here is rather basic, so much so in fact that it could be called simplistic. You're a ship in the middle of the screen, indifferently shaped levels filled with bodies, enemies, which for whatever the reason are supposed to be those titular mutants, and you have to kill them all. Yup, that's pretty much it. When they're all gone, ding ding ding, and you're off to the next stage, rinse and repeat and have great fun. It's a micro twin stick shooter after all, and while the experiences of each stages are quite micro too, the fun that you'll be having playing through it all is anything but petite. The enemies are quite varied in how they look, but they only ever differ really in how they act. Whether they try to charge at you and kill you by colliding with your ship, or if they shoot. Well, sometimes both, but sometimes I feel happy and not my usual scared or confused, so let's not talk about sometimes here. A pretty cool feature of Mutant Storm is that it adapts its gameplay to how good you do. So, the better you are at spreading eternal disease through hordes of evil mutants, the more demanding the game will get, and the more you suck, the less it will throw at you at once. It makes the Mutant Storm feel more dynamic, and provides a challenge while never really overwhelming you with it all. There are naturally power-ups you can pick up from defeated enemies too, and these either make your weapons stronger, give you shield for protection, or plaster your ship with missile launchers, which are always fun to have. Mutant Storm originated on Xbox Live Arcade, which makes it a small, indie-like game in its design, and one that has more substance than fluff, meaning that it's all gameplay and nearly no story. Oh, and if you decide to give it a go, make sure to have a gamepad ready, as on mouse and keyboard it's just unnecessarily difficult and uncomfortable to control. I remember Gaming Max praising Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2 and people talking about it as if it was the next big thing. I also remember feeling really underwhelmed by it, and like it was a sign of the series slowly going down the drain. Which is not a fair statement perhaps, but also not wrong either. From where I was sitting, as I was not a fan of the previous entry either. I believe that released a little while later, Need for Speed Underground truly resurrected the franchise and made it great again. Oh my god, I gotta be careful with these terrible statements. Anyway, Hot Pursuit 2 was not it, and I was not having much fun with it. Well, at least not a lot of it, and not often, as I did had some. There are tons of new trucks and vehicles, both unlocked by competing in races, and you still have to run away from cops when they chase you. With the difference being that they don't issue tickets anymore and end your race if they catch you. It's a bit annoying, but also not too big of an issue if you're at least an average video gaming racing driver. The graphics have been lifted a bit too, looking more modern and fresh. And the events that were previously found in a rather fun Porsche Unleashed offshoot of the series are present in Hot Pursuit 2, and a nice touch to round this objectively speaking decent package of a game. What I did not enjoy about it though were two things. First of all, how floaty the driving felt and how not fun it made the game from time to time. It's not a constant feeling, but when it sets in, you just can't overlook it and have to resort to palette cleaning with another game. And for 2, Hot Pursuit 2 didn't felt like it. Like 2, I mean. It was more like 1.3 alpha at best, and like an iterative addition rather than the new game. That's me though, and you don't have to agree. I mean, it's Moby Games score proofs that people did love it in fact, so I imagine I may be in the vocal minority here. Either way, it's an important release for 2002 and a title that I couldn't just skip, even if it was one I cared very little for. With this episode out of the way, we're nicely progressing through 2002, discovering, reminiscing and remembering games of yore. What do you think of them though? Let me know in the comments below. And when you're down there, telling me how wrong I was about your faith Need for Speed, do click those like, sub and bell icons too, to always be notified when I release something new. For now though, have a good one, take care of yourself and play great games. Or just games, cause you know, maybe you like them bad. Who am I to tell you that it's wrong?